Hello warriors and tactical enthusiasts. Before we dive into this incredible story of precision and determination, don't forget to subscribe to Silent Human Greeting and hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our videos and help our content reach more people who love powerful military stories. The Afghan sun blazed mercilessly over forward operating base Chapman, casting long shadows across the dusty compound. Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell adjusted her desert camouflage uniform and walked purposefully toward the command tent, her Barrett M82 rifle case slung across her shoulder. At 28, she had already earned a reputation as one of the Army's most precise long-distance marksmen, with confirmed kills at distances that made seasoned snipers shake their heads in disbelief. Inside the air-conditioned command tent, tension hung thick as cigarette smoke. Commander Jake Ironside Harrison, a weathered Navy SEAL with 20 years of combat experience, stood before a large topographical map of the Hindu Kush Mountains. His steel-gray eyes reflected the weight of countless missions, and the scar running from his left temple to his jawline told stories of battles fought in the world's most dangerous places. Gentlemen and lady, Harrison nodded toward Sarah. What I'm about to show you has been classified at the highest levels. 3 days ago, our intelligence assets confirmed the location of 3 high-value targets. He pointed to a red circle on the map. Taliban commanders Khalil Ahmad, Bashir Nazir, and Mohammad Qasim will be meeting in this fortified compound tomorrow at 1400 hours. Captain Rodriguez, the base's intelligence officer, leaned forward. Sir, these aren't just any commanders. Ahmad orchestrated the bombing of the Kabul airport. Nazir has been coordinating attacks on supply convoys throughout the region. And Qasim, he paused. Qasim is responsible for the IED that killed 12 Marines last month. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. She remembered those Marines, young faces full of hope and determination, now reduced to flag-draped coffins and grieving families back home. Harrison continued, his voice grim. The compound is built into the mountainside, approximately 1,147 meters from the closest conceivable shooting position. The structure has reinforced concrete walls, and there's only one window, a 3-foot by 2-foot opening facing southeast. He traced his finger along the map's elevation lines. The target building sits at an altitude of 8,200 feet, while our shooting position would be at 7,850 feet. That's a 350-foot elevation difference across rugged terrain. Lieutenant Collins, a young officer fresh from West Point, studied the satellite imagery with a furrowed brow. Commander, what about an airstrike? Predator drone? Surely that would be more reliable than a single sniper shot. Harrison shook his head. The compound is surrounded by a village with approximately 200 civilians. Collateral damage is not acceptable. This needs to be surgical. One shot, clean elimination. He looked directly at Sarah. Our meteorology team is predicting crosswinds of 35 to 45 miles per hour tomorrow afternoon. The atmospheric pressure will be lower due to the altitude, affecting bullet trajectory. And here's the kicker. Intelligence suggests the meeting will last exactly 3 minutes. 3 minutes, people. That's your window. Sarah stepped closer to the map, her trained eyes calculating angles, wind drift, and bullet drop. Sir, what's the confirmed distance again? 1,247 meters, through mountain air, with severe wind conditions, at a target roughly the size of a dinner plate. Harrison's voice carried the weight of experience. I've been doing this for 2 decades, Mitchell. I've seen the best snipers in the world, and I'm telling you straight, no one can make that shot. The tent fell silent, except for the humming of the air conditioning unit. Sarah felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that preceded every impossible challenge she'd faced in her military career. She remembered her father's words from her childhood in rural Montana. Sarah, impossible is just a word people use when they haven't figured out the solution yet. Commander, Sarah said, her voice steady and confident, I'd like to study the ballistics data and terrain analysis. When do we deploy? Harrison studied her face, searching for any hint of doubt or bravado. Instead, he found the calm determination of a professional who understood the weight of the mission. We move out at 0200 hours. You'll have Corporal Jensen as your spotter and security team Alpha for protection. He paused, then added, Mitchell, I need you to understand something. If you miss, those 3 will disappear into the mountains, and we might not get another chance for years. American soldiers will continue to die because of their operations. Sarah nodded, feeling the responsibility settle on her shoulders like a weighted blanket. I understand, sir. I won't miss. As the briefing concluded and the team dispersed, Sarah remained behind, studying the satellite imagery under a magnifying glass. She traced wind patterns, calculated bullet trajectories, and visualized the shot in her mind. Corporal Matt Jensen, her spotter and closest friend in the unit, approached quietly. You know what they're calling this back at headquarters? Jensen asked, his Brooklyn accent cutting through the tense stillness. What's that? The Hail Mary shot. They think it's a 1 in a million chance. Jensen sat down beside her, his own concern evident. "Sarah, I've been your spotter for 18 months. I've seen you do things that defy explanation. But this," he gestured at the map, "this is different. The distance, the conditions, the pressure, it's all stacked against us." Sarah looked up from the imagery, her green eyes reflecting the determination that had carried her through Ranger School and into the elite ranks of military precision shooters. "Matt, remember Kandahar Province, 150-meter shot, 30 Mawaki crosswind, target moving at 15 miles per hour? That was different. We had multiple opportunities and the conditions were better." "No," Sarah said firmly. "The only difference is that everyone's watching this time. The fundamentals remain the same. Read the wind, calculate the trajectory, control the breathing, and trust the training." She stood up, collecting the maps and imagery. "Tomorrow, we're going to show them what's possible when you combine perfect preparation with unwavering determination." As night fell over the Afghan landscape, Sarah lay in her bunk, visualizing the shot over and over. In her mind, she could see the bullet's path through the thin mountain air, accounting for the Coriolis effect, wind drift, and gravity. She had performed this mental rehearsal thousands of times throughout her career, but never with stakes this high. Outside her tent, she could hear the distant rumble of generators and the occasional radio chatter from the night watch. Tomorrow would test every skill she had developed since picking up her first rifle at age 12 on her family's ranch in Big Sky Country. Tomorrow, she would prove that sometimes the impossible was just another word for difficult. Welcome back, tactical enthusiasts. If you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe to Silent Human Greeting and hit that notification bell so you never miss our military stories that showcase the incredible capabilities of our armed forces. At 01:45 hours, Sarah Mitchell completed her final equipment check in the pre-dawn darkness of Fob Chapman. Her Barrett M82 50 caliber rifle gleamed under the fluorescent lights of the armory, every component meticulously cleaned and calibrated. She had hand-selected each of the 5 rounds she would carry, match-grade ammunition with ballistic coefficients calculated to perform optimally in the thin mountain air. Corporal Jensen approached, carrying his M24 sniper weapon system and a range of spotting equipment. "Weather update just came in," he reported, consulting his waterproof notepad. "Winds are currently at 25 mph from the southwest, gusting to 40. Temperature at our destination will be approximately 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity at 18%. Perfect conditions for a long shot," Sarah replied, securing her rifle in its tactical case. Low humidity means less air density, which translates to reduced drag on the bullet. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, leader of Security Team Alpha, joined them at the Humvee. A veteran of 3 combat deployments, Rodriguez had earned his reputation protecting sniper teams in the most hostile environments. "Route is clear to Checkpoint Bravo," he reported. "From there, we'll proceed on foot for the final 2 clicks to the observation post." The drive through the Afghan countryside took them along winding mountain roads that had been carved by centuries of travel and decades of military operations. Sarah watched the landscape transform from the relatively flat terrain around the base to the increasingly rugged foothills of the Hindu Kush range. The darkness was absolute, broken only by their vehicles' night vision-compatible lights and the occasional distant glow of a village. "Tell me about your first long-distance shot," Jensen said, attempting to ease the pre-mission tension. Sarah smiled, remembering. "Age 14, back home in Montana. My dad took me hunting elk in the Bitterroot Mountains. Buck was standing at 650 yards across a valley, wind gusting at 20 mph. Dad said it was too far, too windy, impossible shot for a kid." She adjusted her body armor. "I took my time, read the wind patterns by watching the grass movement, calculated the drop, and put the bullet right behind the front shoulder. Clean kill." "What did your dad say?" "He said I had a gift, but more importantly, he taught me that gifts without discipline are worthless." That's when the real training began. At 03:30 hours, they reached the dismount point. The security team would establish a perimeter while Sarah and Jensen proceeded to the concealed observation post that had been constructed by previous reconnaissance teams. The hike was grueling, 2 kilometers of steep, rocky terrain in full combat gear, carrying precision weapons and electronic equipment. The observation post was ingeniously camouflaged, built into a natural rock formation that provided both concealment and structural support. From this position, they had an unobstructed view of the target compound across the valley. Sarah immediately began setting up her shooting position, using sandbags and a bipod to create a stable platform. "Range confirmed at 247 meters, Jensen reported, using his laser rangefinder. "Elevation difference, 350 feet down. Wind is complicated. He studied the vegetation at various points between their position and the target. I'm seeing different wind patterns at different ranges. Close to us, southwest at 25 mph. Mid-range, it looks like northwest at 35 mph. At the target, southwest again, but gusting. Sarah nodded, understanding the complexity of the shot. Layered winds. The bullet will be pushed in different directions as it travels. She began calculating in her waterproof notebook, using formulas she had memorized years ago. At this distance, a 10 mph crosswind can push a 50 caliber bullet 36 inches off target. With these conditions, you're looking at potential deflection of over 8 feet if you don't account for it properly, Jensen finished. Exactly, but deflection is predictable if you read it correctly. Sarah positioned herself behind her rifle, adjusting the scope's elevation and windage knobs based on her calculations. Through the powerful optic, the target building came into sharp focus. The compound was exactly as described in the intelligence briefings, a fortified structure built into the mountainside, with thick concrete walls and minimal openings. The window they needed to engage through was clearly visible, a dark rectangle against the gray concrete. Sarah could see movement inside, shadows passing back and forth, but no clear targets yet. Time check? She asked. 11:30 hours, 2.5 hours until the target meeting. Sarah settled into what snipers call the wait, that period of absolute patience and heightened awareness that separates professional marksmen from amateur shooters. She controlled her breathing, monitored her heart rate, and continued to study the wind patterns across the valley. At 1200 hours, Jensen spotted the first vehicle approaching the compound. SUV, black tinted windows. Looks like our first guest is arriving. Through her scope, Sarah watched as 3 armed guards emerged from the vehicle, scanning the surrounding terrain with practiced eyes. One of them, tall, bearded, carrying an AK-47, matched the description of Khalil Ahmad's personal security chief. That's Ahmad's protection detail, Sarah confirmed. Target 1 is in the building. Over the next hour, 2 more vehicles arrived in similar fashion. Each brought additional security personnel and high-value targets. The compound, previously quiet, now buzzed with activity. 13:45 hours, Jensen announced. 15 minutes to target time. Sarah made final adjustments to her rifle, checking the scope's mounting and confirming the ballistic computer's calculations one last time. The wind had remained relatively consistent, but she knew that could change in seconds. Sarah, Jensen said quietly, I've been thinking about what Commander Harrison said, about this being impossible. What about it? You know what makes it possible? It's not the equipment, though. This Barrett is a beautiful piece of engineering. It's not luck, though we could use some. It's the fact that you've done this 10,000 times in training. Your muscle memory, your breathing, your trigger control. It's all automatic now. Sarah appreciated his confidence, but she also understood the unique challenges of this particular shot. The difference is that in training, we get multiple attempts to adjust for conditions. Today, we get one bullet. One bullet, Jensen agreed, but it's guided by years of perfect practice. At 13:58 hours, Jensen's voice sharpened with urgency. Movement in the target window. I can see figures gathering inside. Sarah's world narrowed to the view through her scope. Through the magnified optic, she could see shapes moving within the darkened room. The intelligence was accurate. The meeting was beginning exactly on schedule. 2 minutes, Jensen announced, his voice now barely above a whisper. Sarah's breathing slowed to the deep, controlled rhythm she had practiced thousands of times. Her heart rate decreased as her body entered the physiological state that had been conditioned through years of training. Everything, the weight of her gear, the discomfort of the rocky ground, the pressure of the mission, faded away until only the target remained. The shot that would define her career was less than 60 seconds away. Warriors, welcome back to Silent Human Greeting. If this incredible story of military precision has you on the edge of your seat, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join our community of tactical enthusiasts who appreciate real military excellence. At 13:59 hours, Sarah Mitchell's world condensed to a circle of magnified reality, 247 meters away. Through her Barrett's precision scope, the target window had transformed from an empty black rectangle into a stage where 3 of the most dangerous terrorist commanders in Afghanistan were about to seal their fate. 30 seconds, Jensen whispered, his voice barely audible. Wind holding steady at southwest 38 mph, gusting to 42. Temperature stable at 44 degrees. Sarah's breathing had entered the meditative rhythm that separated elite snipers from good shooters. Each inhalation lasted 4 seconds, held for 2, then released over 6 seconds. Her heart rate had dropped to 52 beats per minute, the physiological state she had trained her body to achieve under extreme stress. Through the scope, She could now clearly see movement inside the target room. 3 figures had positioned themselves around what appeared to be a table. Intelligence had been accurate. These weren't random meetings. This was operational planning at the highest level of the Taliban command structure. First target visible, Sarah reported quietly. Male, approximately 5'10", dark beard, red head wrap, matches the description of Khalil Ahmad. Confirmed visual, Jensen responded, tracking the same target through his spotting scope. Second individual entering frame, taller, gray beard, black vest. Bashir Nazir, Sarah identified, the convoy coordinator. The third figure moved into view, shorter than the others but carrying himself with unmistakable authority. Mohammed Qasim, the bomb maker responsible for the deaths of 12 Marines, positioned himself at the head of the table. All 3 targets confirmed in the window, Jensen announced. Wind check, southwest 40 Mwake, steady, range 247 meters, elevation down 350 feet. Sarah made microscopic adjustments to her shooting position, ensuring perfect alignment between her body, the rifle, and the target. Years of training had taught her that at extreme distances, even a heartbeat could affect accuracy. She positioned herself in the natural respiratory pause, that brief moment between exhalation and the next breath where the body is completely still. 10 seconds, Jensen counted down. Through her scope, Sarah could see the 3 commanders leaning over documents spread across the table. In her mind, she visualized the bullet's path, exiting the muzzle at 2,800 feet per second, arcing across the valley while fighting the crosswind, dropping precisely 89 inches due to gravity, and arriving at the target in 1.6 seconds. 5, 4, 3. At that moment, the impossible happened. A sudden gust of wind, stronger than anything they had measured, swept across the valley. Sarah felt it immediately, not just as a physical force against her body, but as a fundamental change in the shooting equation. The vegetation between her position and the target bent dramatically, indicating wind speeds potentially exceeding 50 mph. Wind shift, Jensen called urgently. Northwest gusting to 50, maybe 55. Any other sniper would have aborted the shot. The conditions had moved beyond the parameters of the mission planning. The ballistic calculations they had spent hours perfecting were now invalid. The margin for error had disappeared entirely, but Sarah Mitchell had not earned her reputation by accepting limitations. In the span of less than 1 second, her mind processed multiple complex calculations. The increased wind speed would push the bullet approximately 14 inches to the right of her original aim point. The slight change in wind direction would add a vertical component, pushing the bullet down an additional 6 inches. The temporary increase in air pressure from the wind gust would marginally increase air density, affecting bullet velocity. She made the adjustment instinctively, moving her point of aim 18 inches left and 8 inches high from her original target. To anyone watching, it would appear that she was aiming at empty space beside the window. But Sarah knew that by the time her bullet arrived, the targets would be precisely in that location. Shooting, she announced calmly. Her finger applied 4.2 pounds of pressure to the trigger, the exact amount required to break the Barrett's crisp, clean trigger pull. The rifle roared, its muzzle brake redirecting gases to minimize recoil. The massive .50 caliber bullet began its journey across the Afghan valley at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. Through her scope, Sarah watched the bullet's trace as it fought the crosswind. To her trained eye, the trajectory looked perfect. The projectile was tracking exactly where her calculations had predicted it would need to go. 1.6 seconds after the shot, the bullet arrived at its destination. The effect was immediate and devastating. All 3 commanders who had been leaning over their operational plans collapsed simultaneously. The single bullet, precisely placed and perfectly timed, had achieved what everyone had declared impossible. Targets down, Jensen confirmed through his spotting scope, his voice filled with awe. All 3 targets down, clean kills. But Sarah remained in position, watching through her scope as chaos erupted in the compound below. Security personnel rushed into the room, weapons raised, searching for an enemy that was over a mile away. The operational meeting that had been planned to coordinate months of terrorist attacks had been terminated in 1.6 seconds. Confirmed elimination of all 3 high-value targets, Sarah reported into her radio. Ahmad, Nazir, and Qasim are neutralized. Commander Harrison's voice crackled through the communications system from the Tactical Operations Center. Mitchell, did you just tell me that you eliminated all 3 targets with a single shot? Affirmative, Commander. 1 shot, 3 targets. Clean eliminations. There was a moment of radio silence before Harrison responded. Outstanding work, Mitchell. Exfiltration team is en route to your position. Prepare for immediate extraction. As Sarah began securing her equipment, Jensen shook his head in amazement. 18 months as your spotter, and you still find ways to surprise surprise me. How did you know to adjust for that wind gust? Sarah carefully placed her Barrett back in its protective case, treating the rifle with the respect it deserved. Remember what you said about muscle memory and training? It applies to more than just the physical mechanics of shooting. You train your mind to process information instantly, to adapt to changing conditions without hesitation. But that adjustment, you were aiming at empty air. I was aiming where the targets would be when the bullet arrived, accounting for all the variables that others saw as impossible obstacles. Sarah shouldered her pack and prepared to move out. The shot wasn't impossible, Matt. It just required perfect preparation, meeting perfect execution. As they began their extraction from the observation post, Sarah took one last look across the valley at the compound that would no longer serve as a planning center for terrorist operations. 3 of the most dangerous enemies of American forces had been eliminated in a single, precisely calculated moment. The impossible shot had become reality through the combination of advanced training, sophisticated equipment, perfect teamwork, and the kind of determination that defined the finest military marksman in the world. But more than that, it represented the successful completion of a mission that would save countless American and coalition lives. The mountain winds that had nearly derailed the mission now seemed to whisper approval as Sarah Mitchell made her way back to base, carrying with her the knowledge that sometimes the impossible was just another word for challenging. Welcome back to the final chapter, Tactical Community. If this incredible story of military excellence has impressed you, make sure you're subscribed to Silent Human Greeting and hit that notification bell to join our growing community of people who appreciate the extraordinary capabilities of our armed forces. The extraction helicopter's rotors cut through the thin mountain air as Sarah Mitchell and her team lifted off from the landing zone, leaving behind the rocky observation post where military history had been written with a single bullet. Below them, the Afghan landscape stretched endlessly, the same rugged terrain that had challenged warriors for centuries, now witnessed to a feat of marksmanship that would become legend. Commander Harrison's voice crackled through Sarah's headset as they approached Fob Chapman. Mitchell, I need you to understand something. What you accomplished today, in 20 years of military service, I've never seen anything like it. The preliminary damage assessment confirms elimination of all 3 high-value targets with a single shot. Sarah adjusted her headset, still processing the magnitude of what had transpired. Commander, the conditions aligned perfectly. Wind, temperature, timing, everything came together. Negative. Harrison's voice carried the weight of experience. Conditions were adverse in every measurable way. What aligned was years of training meeting exceptional skill under extreme pressure. That's not luck, Mitchell. That's excellence. As the helicopter touched down at Chapman, Sarah was surprised to see a crowd gathered near the landing pad. Word of the mission's success had spread quickly through the base, and soldiers from various units had assembled to witness the return of the sniper team that had achieved the impossible. Captain Rodriguez, the intelligence officer, was the first to greet them as they disembarked. Mitchell, the intelligence community is calling this the shot of the decade. Those 3 commanders were coordinating operations across 4 provinces. Conservative estimates suggest your actions today saved hundreds of American and coalition lives. In the debriefing room, Sarah found herself facing not just her immediate command structure, but also representatives from Special Operations Command and senior intelligence officials who had flown in specifically to understand how a shot deemed impossible had been successfully executed. Staff Sergeant Mitchell, began Colonel Patricia Hayes, a career military intelligence officer, walk us through your decision-making process when the wind conditions changed at the moment of firing. Sarah consulted her notes, though the memory was crystal clear. Ma'am, the wind shift occurred approximately 2 seconds before I fired. Initial readings had shown southwest winds at 40 mph. The sudden gust registered northwest at approximately 52 mph, based on vegetation movement indicators. And you adjusted for this in real time? Yes, ma'am. The new wind vector required an 18-inch left adjustment and 8-inch elevation correction to account for both horizontal and vertical wind components. Additionally, the temporary increase in air pressure from the gust would affect bullet velocity, but at 1,147 meters, this represented less than 1 inch of impact deviation. Colonel Hayes exchanged glances with her colleagues. Sergeant, are you telling us that you performed complex ballistic calculations and made precision adjustments in less than 2 seconds, under combat conditions, for a target at nearly 3/4 of a mile? Ma'am, the calculations were instantaneous because they were based on principles I've been practicing for 15 years. When you understand understand the physics of long-range shooting at a fundamental level, adjustments become intuitive rather than mathematical. General Robert Sterling, who had been silent throughout the briefing, finally spoke. "Mitchell, I've reviewed your service record. Ranger School honor graduate, top of your class at the Army Marksmanship Unit, multiple combat deployments with consistently exceptional performance. But this," he gestured at the mission reports, "this transcends individual achievement. This is strategic impact through tactical excellence." Over the following days, as the full implications of the successful mission became clear, Sarah found herself at the center of attention she had never sought. Intelligence reports confirmed that the elimination of the 3 commanders had disrupted major planned operations across Afghanistan. Weapon shipments were intercepted, bomb-making facilities were discovered and destroyed, and dozens of planned attacks were prevented. Corporal Jensen found Sarah in the base's small recreation area, where she was reading a letter from home. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Sarah folded the letter. News from her family's ranch in Montana, where life continued its steady rhythm regardless of events half a world away. "I keep thinking about what Commander Harrison said about impossible shots." "What about it?" "Growing up in Montana, my grandfather used to tell me stories about hunters who could put a bullet through a silver dollar at 500 yards using iron sights. People called those shots impossible too, but they happened because the shooters understood their craft completely." Sarah looked out at the Afghan mountains visible through the window. "I think impossible is just a word we use for things we haven't figured out how to do yet." Jensen nodded thoughtfully. "The thing is, Sarah, what you did out there, it wasn't just about the technical skill. The pressure, the stakes, the knowledge that one miss could mean those terrorists would disappear and continue killing Americans. That's what made it extraordinary." 2 weeks later, Sarah received official notification that she was being awarded the Silver Star for gallantry in action. The citation read, in part, "Staff Sergeant Mitchell's exceptional marksmanship under extreme conditions resulted in the elimination of 3 high-value enemy targets with a single shot at a distance of 1,147 meters in adverse weather conditions, directly contributing to the disruption of major terrorist operations and the preservation of American and coalition lives." But perhaps more meaningful than the official recognition was the letter she received from the family of one of the Marines killed by Mohammed Qasim's bombs. The mother had written, "My son Tommy used to say that there were guardian angels watching over American soldiers. After learning what you did, I believe he was right. Thank you for ensuring that no other mother will lose her child to that monster's bombs." On her final day at Phoebe Chapman before rotating back to the United States, Sarah climbed to the base's observation tower and looked out across the valley where she had taken the shot that would define her military career. The mountains remained unchanged, ancient, imposing, indifferent to human conflict, but somewhere in those peaks, 3 fewer terrorists were planning attacks against American forces. Commander Harrison joined her on the observation deck. "Second thoughts about what happened out there?" "No, sir. Just reflecting on the responsibility that comes with this kind of capability." Sarah adjusted her uniform cap against the mountain wind. "Every shot a sniper takes carries consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate target. Understanding that responsibility is part of what separates a professional soldier from someone who just happens to be good at shooting." "What's next for you, Mitchell?" "Back to Fort Bragg for reassignment. Word is they want me to help develop advanced marksmanship training programs. Pass on what I've learned to the next generation of military marksmen." Harrison nodded approvingly. "The shot you took will be studied and analyzed for years, but the real value isn't in replicating that specific moment. It's in understanding the mindset and preparation that made it possible." As the transport plane lifted off from Bagram Airfield, carrying Sarah back to the United States, she reflected on the mission that had earned her a place in military legend. The shot itself had lasted 1.6 seconds, but the preparation, the years of training, the commitment to excellence, the understanding of her craft at the deepest level, that had taken a lifetime. Looking down at the Afghan landscape receding below, Sarah Mitchell understood that she had not just achieved the impossible, she had redefined it, and in doing so, she had proven that the limits we accept are often far short of what we can actually achieve when preparation meets determination under pressure. The impossible shot had become possible through the marriage of advanced technology, perfect training, and unwavering commitment to mission success. But more than that, it represented the finest traditions of American military excellence, the idea that when lives hang in the balance, exceptional soldiers find ways to achieve exceptional results. Years later, When young snipers would ask about the secret to making impossible shots, Sarah's answer would always be the same. There are no impossible shots. There are only shots you haven't prepared for yet. The legend of the 1-247-meter shot would inspire military marksmen for generations, but Sarah Mitchell knew that her greatest achievement wasn't the shot itself. It was proving that with perfect preparation, unwavering determination, and absolute commitment to excellence, the impossible was just another challenge waiting to be conquered. The end.